Hello, my name is Madeleine Alston and I am a Senior GIS Technician at Alcis. Alcis works to improve the lives of the world's most vulnerable people through innovative, world-class geographic information services. Through access to unique data, harnessing emerging technologies, and constant innovation, we enable better understanding, decisions, and outcomes for our clients and beneficiaries in fragile and complex environments. Today, we are going to be presenting on how we have used deep learning capabilities to accurately count tent numbers in camps for internally displaced people, helping aid agencies to deliver aid more effectively. So, what was the problem and what was the challenge that we were tackling? Afghanistan as a country has had many years of civil war and unrest, which has resulted in it being one of the poorest countries in the world, and over half the population live below the poverty line. Billions of US dollars are given by foreign aid annually, with many donors and organisations supporting the development and aiming to improve the livelihoods of those who live there. The harsh environment, coupled with the ongoing conflict, has meant that for years people have been forced to flee their homes. Afghanistan is also the world's second largest source of refugees, with 2.5 million people displaced outside the country and likely many more who are not registered. There are also more than 3.5 million internally displaced people, known as IDPs. Unfortunately, in 2018 there was a devastating drought which led to another 371,000 people being driven from their homes and into informal, tented IDP camps. These tents are important indicators in determining the changing demand for humanitarian support. Alcis was tasked by the Norwegian Refugee Council, who were working on the ground to investigate where these people had come from, where they had gone to, and how many of them there were, so that they could provide the right level of support. Initially, we looked at the impact of the drought, identifying the communities where the loss of crops was most felt. We then went on to understand the movement of people and analyse the location and distribution of these shelters in these makeshift camps. It is this spatial analysis of the drought and the subsequent use of machine learning and Esri's tools that I'm going to demonstrate now. We began by carrying out an NDVI analysis. Now, NDVI stands for Normalized Difference Vegetation Index and is a proxy indicator for crop health. We performed a raster calculation to compare the 2018 NDVI to the long-term average and quantify statistics at a district and sub-basin level. The maps indicate that all throughout the northwest hydrological basin there was significant reduction in crop health. Many of those still living in Afghanistan depend on agriculture and natural resources for their livelihoods, leaving tens of millions of people vulnerable to the increasing threat of climate change. Therefore, the drought was devastating and forced them from their homes in search for food and shelter. Many fled to IDP camps, joining the thousands who had fled their homes for other reasons, such as violence, famine, and natural disasters. We then combined the NDVI data with our own population density layer to look at where the greatest losses in NDVI were relative to the population. These areas would be where the greatest impact was and where the NRC needed to focus their response. Lastly, we added our livelihoods layer, which predicted where, when the time came, the people could return home and re-establish themselves in a self-sufficient manner. We produced 3D and bivariate mapping to effectively visualize these three parameters. In the visualization, the purple areas are the places most affected and with the greatest populations, and the height indicates the potential livelihood upon return. Following the success of this initial project, we then used machine learning techniques to count the tents which were home to the internally displaced people of northern Afghanistan forced to flee their homes because of the drought. The aim of this was to assist the NRC with the analysis of the number, flow, and concentration of these humanitarian shelters, enabling valuable aid to be delivered more effectively. The initial analysis was performed in ArcGIS Pro in 2019. Counting thousands of tents by hand was a huge task, so we decided to use the Esri tools available to us at the time to see if we could automate the process. The initial methods we selected included image segmentation and then supervised object-based classification. Unfortunately, the results produced a success rate of 75% after we performed accuracy assessments, which, although not a terrible result, there was too many errors and too many tents missed. It was apparent that an alternative route was necessary to achieve the level of detail and precision that we required. Therefore, we opted to design our own bespoke neural network. The outcome of this resulted in an average precision of 97.01% and an average sensitivity of 98.68%. However, following the release of ArcGIS Pro 2.5, Alcis has tested and utilised the capabilities, comparing the highly accurate results we generated from our own bespoke neural network to the built-in tools in ArcGIS Pro to help us automate the process further. In ArcGIS Pro 2.5, training a deep learning model became available to make ArcGIS Pro a complete data science workstation. The whole end-to-end workflow of object detection can now be done in ArcGIS Pro without having to train the neural networks externally. The idea was to make our lives easier by using the output of the traditional deep learning methods as an input for a new object detection workflow inside ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro includes different deep learning model types, such as UNet, Mask RCNN, and single-shot detector. The output temp mask from the bespoke neural network was used to generate a new training dataset using the geoprocessing tool, export training data for deep learning. We chose to use the Mask RCNN deep learning model. The advantage of this model is that it draws features exactly as they seem in the image, and as we only had one feature we wanted to capture, which was the tents, it was most suitable. In conditions where features may be touching each other, instant segmentation models should be chosen as it would provide better results. Now, a key component during this step is the stride. We chose to set the stride to be half the cell size, which therefore means we are able to export more training data through overlapping the image chips. More training data means a more accurate model. Now we have successfully ran the tool and obtained the training data. You can see in the folder we have the output, the images, which have all been chipped up into lots of smaller images, and the labels. The next step was to use ArcGIS API for Python to train a Mask RCNN model using RCNN masks created from the previous step. A Jupyter notebook was created using ArcGIS Pro to perform the following steps: importing the modules and data preparation, loading the model architecture and finding the optimum learning rate, training the model, saving the model, and showing the results. Now, this step can also be carried out within the geoprocessing toolbox within ArcGIS Pro if you are less familiar with Jupyter notebooks. The tool is called Train Deep Learning Model, and it is important here to set the parameters suitable for the size of the dataset you are using and the computer's machine capabilities. The last step was to use the trained model to do the inference using the geoprocessing tool, detect objects using deep learning, The detected output features were really successful, with an accuracy of more than 97% represented in the confidence field. You can see the output of the model on the screen now. In terms of time, effort, efficiency and ease, ArcGIS Pro was much faster, required minimal post-processing, and was much easier to use than the bespoke neural network, without significantly reducing the accuracy of the results. For both of the projects, we delivered the NRC a story map as the end product. The advantage of this is that it allowed the donor to interact and interrogate the data to further aid their decision-making. For example, in the 3D bivariate mapping, they were able to locate specific areas which were most likely to have been affected and had the greatest populations. And for the tents project, the exact locations of the tents was hosted in a web map embedded in the story map. The NRC were also able to view our methodology so that they could have confidence in the results, and it also meant it was much easier to read and engage with. This project provided the NRC with unparalleled access to detailed information, allowing them to analyse vast quantities of complex and varied data in a simple and visual way. From this came the knowledge and insight to make clear and effective decisions as to how to implement the right response and provide the right aid to the right people in the right place at the right time. 2 years on, and amongst the many challenges facing Afghanistan, there are predictions of another drought on its way. The advantage is we now have a fully trained model with a large training dataset, which we know, should it be needed, can provide accurate and timely results to donors in order that aid can be delivered most efficiently to help support those who need it most.